Time for all-time rankings here at the Voice of College Football. We appreciate you stopping by for the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. Please like the video and subscribe. We start in the Big 12, and this is a bit of a rough project because we cannot purely evaluate the schools that play football in these conferences right now in 2025 because we have a sordid history in these conferences with teams and schools coming and going. So basically what we're going to do this week is we're going to look at each conference and just take the schools that are in the conference right now and evaluate them and compare them in their all-time history, not necessarily just within that conference, but their history as a football program, and then compare the teams within that conference right now. We're going to start in the Big 12, and again, the most dominant program in the Big 12's history, going back to 1996, its first season, is easily Oklahoma with 14 Big 12 championships, and Oklahoma's record of Big 12 titles is not going to be eclipsed for a long, long time. Look at this run here. Oklahoma 14, Texas 4, of course, they're both on to the SEC. Baylor 3, Kansas State 3, Nebraska in the Big 10. Texas A&M's in the SEC now. And then we've got Arizona State already with one in one season in the Big 12. Again, the conference was formed in 1994. They hit the football field in 1996. Nebraska lost to Texas in the first Big 12 championship game in a big upset. And this is a brief history of these schools and how they have come and gone. There have been seven schools in the Big 12 have endured the entire history of the conference. Baylor, Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech. Colorado was in the original conference as well in 1996, but they left, about 15 years later. And now, of course, they're back in the Big 12 in 2024. TCU and West Virginia joined in 2012. And now we've got this huge influx over the past two football seasons. BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF in 2023. And then the four coming in from the Pac-12 in 2024, Arizona State, who won the conference, Colorado, and Utah. And the Buffs almost made the Big 12 championship game. And again, it should be noted that Oklahoma, the most successful, by far most successful program in conference history, and also Texas, it could be argued that Texas is number 2. They left after the 2023 campaign. So again, this is not an exercise to rank the all-time programs in the history of the Big 12. It's to take the current schools in the Big 12 and rank them top to bottom in regards to their football history. Otherwise, Oklahoma would be number 1 in the history of the Big 12, and Texas might have an argument as a better all-time program, although I also think that Oklahoma would win that battle against the Horns. So let's look at the current programs in the Big 12 and shake it out. Look at this. Arizona State is the only school in the current Big 12 with an all-time winning percentage above 60% at 601. Then we've got West Virginia's right there, as well as Utah at 595-94. Got to consider, though, that Utah before earlier this century was playing Group of 5 football. So that has to be taken into consideration, as well as BYU's winning percentage at 583. And again, Cincinnati just jumped up to Power 5 football just 2 seasons ago, but they were in the Big East prior to that before being knocked down to the American Conference. And so you got your winning percentages across the board, and it's very, very close. Because, again, we do not have any dominant schools here. They have all had their ups and downs throughout the years. UCF, one of the newcomers to Power 5 conference play at 554, and the newest to playing football, period. And then we see the worst programs by far because they don't even have a 500 record, and that's with a lot of give-me non-conference wins. Kansas at 47%, Kansas State at 463, despite the Wildcats being a fine football program since Bill Snyder took them over and elevated them in the early 1990s. Kansas State was that bad for that long that they're at 463. Iowa State with the worst winning percentage in the history of the conference. The Associated Press was established in 1936, and they have an evaluation here in which they basically just allot points based on final standing in the AP poll. So if you finish number 1 in the country, you get 25 points. If you finish number 2, you get 24 points, and on down the line. So if you finish number 25 in the final AP poll, you get 1 point. And there you see the AP point totals. TCU, surprisingly, at 313, they're at number 1. Arizona State, keep in mind that they and Arizona were elevated to power conference play not that long ago, less than 50 years ago in the Pac-12 in what was the Pac-8 at the time. Arizona State made them the Pac-10 in 1978 and then later the Pac-12. So those schools were not finishing in the top 25 because they just did not have the schedule to warrant that. Arizona State played in the WAC conference at that point, and you see on down the line, UCF again just starting to make a name for itself in the last decade or two in all-time rankings. And Iowa State, again, has just been that bad that most of the points that Iowa State shows there have come under the regime of Matt Campbell. When we look at bowl wins, we see that Oklahoma State has topped 20. So the Cowboys with 21 under Mike Gundy, and most of those wins came under Mike Gundy. And of course, teams play in more bowl games because there are simply more bowl games now. But you see the total bowl wins there, followed by the major bowl wins. And again, you take Oklahoma and Texas out of this conference, and you just rip away all the cachet for the most part. TCU has the most major bowl wins with 7. We got Oklahoma State with 4, Colorado with 4, and there is little else to see there. Cincinnati has yet to win a major bowl game. Of course, the Bearcats went to the CFP under Luke Fickell just a few seasons ago, and also under Brian Kelly, played in the Sugar Bowl in 2009. Conference championships. So these are conference championships, obviously, in any major conference, or in the case of Utah, UCF, and others, in group of 5 conferences. And so minus Oklahoma and Texas, again, the Sooners taking 50 conference championships with them, both first in the Big 8 conference and then in the Big 12 conference. Colorado 26, BYU with 23. Utah tops the charts with 28, but the WAC conference playing a major factor there. And on down the line, Iowa State has not won a conference championship since 1912. This list right here shows you that since the formation of the Big 12, how many conference championships have been won, but also the number of seasons in which these teams have participated in the conference, because that obviously skews things to a certain extent, to where Arizona State has the best conference championship winning percentage because they did it one time in one season. They are a perfect 1-for-1. With the exit of Oklahoma and Texas, there went the national championships as well. TCU and Oklahoma State topped the conference with 2, and then we have 1 each from BYU 1984, Colorado 1990, and if UCF wants to claim a national championship, I will do that with them in 2017. NFL draft selections. Colorado with 280, and again, Arizona State might surprise some people here at 256, number 2 on the list. Also topping the 200 figure, Baylor and also TCU. First round selections. Again, the first round selections typically just line up and are in the same order as the overall selections. That only makes sense. There are just a handful of teams that have over 20 first round selections, including Arizona State and Colorado among the tops in the current Big 12. All-America selections, Colorado tops with 33. We have only one other school with more than 20, and that would be Oklahoma State with 21 all-time consensus All-Americans. Travis Hunter broke a tie by winning the Heisman Trophy just a few months ago, the second for Colorado. That breaks a tie with 5 other schools with only 1 Heisman Trophy. And then we also have major awards. So if you take all of the major positional awards, the Doak Walker at running back, the John Mackey at tight end, the Fred Biletnikoff at wide receiver, every position award, the Remington, Lombardi, the Bednarik, on down the line, the Outland, the Thorpe. We went to every position, including kicker and punter, added up the awards. And Colorado leads with 10. Oklahoma State's got 6. BYU checks in with 9 award winners as well. I find this statistic very interesting. We break down the number of top 25 finishes by every school, also the number of top 10 finishes, and also top 5 finishes. So the most ranked finishes by a team in the Big 12 currently would be TCU with 21. Then we've got a 3-way tie with West Virginia, BYU, and Colorado with 20. Arizona State's right there as well, and Oklahoma State with 17. Top 10 finishes. There's only one school in the conference that has finished in the top 10 more than 10 times. That's TCU at 11, and then on down the list. Top 5 finishes, you got TCU with 4. And you've got Colorado with 5. And, of course, the Buffs won the national championship with Georgia Tech in 1990. The college football playoff was implemented in 2014, so that would be 11 seasons. And here are the records of the teams in the Big 12 since 2014. Utah's played well, of course. They have been a top-notch program, going to a number of Pac-12 championship games late in their run in the Pac-12 and going to the Rose Bowl a number of times. BYU's been strong at 89 and 52. Of course, Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State has been very consistent. They've got 92 wins. Gary Patterson and TCU 90 and 50 during the CFP era. Kansas State under Bill Snyder and now Chris Kleiman at 85 and 55. Now let's check out the record comparison in the 21st century. And who is top 200 wins here? Well, we got TCU, although we got to consider that before joining the Big 12 in 2012, they were basically playing Group of 5 football. But before that, they were in the Southwest Conference, one of the best conferences in college football. TCU at 211 and 93. BYU also hits the 200-win mark at 200 and 109. Utah with a fine winning percentage at 201 and 98 as well. And then you see how everyone else slots. Colorado has been down for a long, long time with only 121 wins. Kansas, of course, abysmal post-2007 until just a couple seasons ago as Lance Leipold is rebuilding that program. The Jayhawks, a dismal 96 and 192. Iowa State's been pretty bad as well, of course, before Matt Campbell took over. Now let's take these records back to 1970. Is there anything special about 1970 besides it being just a even year? Not really. 55 years ago, that is a substantial block of time in the totality of college football history. 55 football seasons. Also, more importantly, let's consider this. 70 to 75% of the players in the NFL are black. And of course, we had segregation for a long, long time. And then we had a process of desegregation. So we cannot just mark a time in which the sport was fully integrated. But by 1970, it was. So this is just interesting to look at. The schools that have played the best among the current Big 12 schools. And of course, there was no Big 12 in 1970. Most of these schools played all over as independents. And of course, some came from the Southwest Conference like Texas Tech and Houston and TCU. And again, a number of teams in the Big 8 like Oklahoma State and the 2 Kansas schools and Iowa State. We see that BYU, highly successful, of course. West Virginia is in the top 15 all-time in wins. The only schools that are below 500 going back to 1970 would be Kansas and Iowa State, because Kansas State, with this late rush under Bill Snyder and Chris Kleiman, is finally over 500 in recent college football history at 335 and 317. And you see the third column there, young college football fans. Yes, we once had ties. That was done away with in 1997 with the introduction of overtime. One of the big reasons why you see no ties for UCF, because UCF started playing football in 1997. The one stat I would love to have is each school's all-time winning percentage and record within conference play, both in their current conference and all-time in conference play. I cannot get a handle on finding that anywhere. So if you have a website or something that some kind of resource where you can find the records of all the Big 12 schools, let's say, in regards to their conference record total, I would love to see that. And then their conference record in every conference that they've played in, because that is a better barometer of that takes out non-conference play and just gives us an idea of how the teams played against each other during the time that they were in the conference together. All right, so we put it all together, and our rankings for the current schools in the Big 12, not all time because Oklahoma would be number one, but in the current Big 12, our rankings in regards to program rankings looks like this. Arizona State is surprising number 1, West Virginia 2, Colorado 3, BYU at 4, TCU, Utah, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Texas Tech, and Arizona in the top 10, followed by Houston, Cincinnati, UCF, Kansas at 14, and of course UCF's got a much, much shorter football history than any of these schools. And then the 3 cellar dwellers are the only 3 programs that have a sub-500 record all time: Kansas, Kansas State, and Iowa State. And that's funny to consider because Iowa State and Kansas State are playing the opener in 2025. They might be the 2 best programs in the conference right now to a certain extent, at least that they've proven. Arizona State, of course, won the championship last year, but these 2 schools have had the longest run of success, along with Oklahoma State, of the current Big 12 members. But their early history was just so incredibly bad that even this run by Bill Snyder, starting in the early 1990s, has not pushed Kansas State any higher than number 15 in the conference. That's how awful the Wildcats were, and that's how great Bill Snyder is. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Please like and subscribe. Leave your rankings down below, or whatever context you want to put on the Big 12 rankings. And again, we will continue our series right here at the Voice of College Football. Next up, how about the ACC?